Imagine a man quietly sitting in a prison cell, 78 years old, sketching the faces of women he claims to have killed. One by one, he draws them from memory, women he says no one else even remembers. That man is Samuel Little. And according to the FBI, he's the most prolific serial killer in United States history. Samuel Little confessed to murdering 93 women between 1970 and 2005, and here's the terrifying part. Authorities have verified at least 60 of those confessions. The rest are still under investigation, but law enforcement believes almost all of them are real.
Numerous murders of women in my life over a span of 50 years.
Tell me about North Little Rock. Tell me what that girl looked like.
They had buck teeth. He had a gap between the teeth, that's what it was.
Little wasn't just a serial killer. He was a predator who roamed the country for decades, slipping through the cracks of the justice system while leaving behind a trail of forgotten lives. So how did this happen? How did the most dangerous killer in American history manage to avoid capture for more than 30 years?
Little grows disturbingly animated as he describes how he strangled his victims.
She fighting for her life. Fighting for my pleasure.
Yeah.
Little skinny black girl, real friendly. She was laughing while I was killing her.
Samuel Little was born in Georgia in 1940, and he didn't have a stable upbringing. His mother was reportedly a sex worker, and he spent most of his childhood with his grandmother in Ohio. From a young age, he showed signs of violent and antisocial behavior, breaking into homes, stealing, and getting into trouble with the law. It wasn't long before he dropped out of school and began a nomadic lifestyle. He would drift from state to state, committing small-time crimes to survive. Over the years, he was arrested more than 100 times: theft, assault, drug possession, fraud, and you name it. But none of those charges stuck for long, and through it all, he kept killing. Little targeted women who lived on the margins of society, often black, often sex workers, addicts, or people struggling with homelessness. These were people less likely to be reported missing and less likely to have cases aggressively pursued by law enforcement. That's part of what allowed him to get away with murder for decades. He strangled his victims, usually with his bare hands. That left little physical evidence, and many of the deaths weren't even classified as homicides at the time. Some were ruled as overdoses, natural causes, or simply undetermined. Without obvious injuries or a suspect, the cases went cold, but in 2012, everything changed as Samuel Little was arrested in Kentucky on a minor drug charge. Because of modern forensic protocols, his DNA was collected and entered into a national database. That DNA matched evidence from 3 unsolved murders in Los Angeles, women who had all been strangled in the late 80s.
This conviction was brought on by lies and liars, coached by liars.
Finally, after more than 40 years of violence, Samuel Little was connected to murder. He was convicted of those 3 killings in 2014 and sentenced to life in prison.
Involved great violence, cruelty, and viciousness.
But the story doesn't end there. In 2018, Texas Ranger James Holland sat down with Samuel Little in prison. He didn't expect what happened next. Little started talking, not just about those 3 murders, but dozens more.
It was a big mystery, that must have been the worst part, not knowing, who did it. If you have a mom out there, call her up and, tell her you love her, because you might not have another chance.
He confessed to 93 killings in total, describing them in disturbing detail. He remembered faces, locations, vehicles, even what his victims were wearing. Many of these cases had never been linked to him. Some hadn't even been classified as crimes. He began drawing pictures of his victims, portraits based entirely on memory. And he was good, really good. The FBI released these sketches, hoping someone would recognize the women. Some families did. Several cold cases were reopened and confirmed. What's so disturbing is how confident and emotionless he was during these interviews.
Got away with numerous murders of women in my life over a span of 50 years.
Tell me about North Little Rock. Tell me what that girl looked like.
They had buck teeth. He had a gap between the teeth, that's what it was.
Little grows disturbingly animated as he describes how he strangled his victims.
She fighting for her life, fighting for my pleasure.
Yeah.
Little skinny black girl, real friendly. She was laughing while I was killing her.
He talked about the murders like someone would describe grocery shopping. He smiled. He laughed. He even corrected investigators when they got details wrong. Law enforcement worked overtime to verify his stories. They searched old case files, looked for missing persons reports, and matched his drawings to long-forgotten victims. Today, over 60 of the murders have been officially confirmed, and that number may still grow. Samuel Little died in 2020 at the age of 80, but his legacy leaves behind a chilling reality, not just of what he did, but how he got away with it. His case exposed major flaws in the criminal justice system. Because he targeted women on society's fringes, their disappearances didn't make headlines. Their deaths didn't get investigated thoroughly.
I've had a gaping hole in my heart for 25 years.
And because he committed crimes in dozens of different jurisdictions, from California to Florida to Ohio, law enforcement never connected the dots until it was far too late.
Very difficult time, but I'm glad it's over.
I was 13 when I had to bury her. I had to say goodbye.
Little wasn't hiding, he was simply being ignored. His story is a brutal reminder that many murder victims, especially poor, marginalized women, can vanish without notice, and it's a wake-up call for how the system needs to change. Even today, the FBI is asking the public to help identify some of the women in Little's sketches. Families of the missing continue to come forward. Some find closure, others are still waiting.
Him, he's gone. He can't hurt anybody now.
Now I felt, and I'm just, I'm totally, absolutely happy about this, that it's over.
Samuel Little didn't just kill people. He exploited every weakness in the system, forensic limitations, jurisdictional gaps, and society's indifference to certain victims. For decades, he was invisible, until DNA and a determined investigator finally brought his horrors into the light. If this story disturbs you, it should, but it also shows the power of modern forensics, relentless detectives, and the importance of not forgetting the voiceless, because every one of those 93 women had a name, a story, and a life that mattered. Don't let them be forgotten.